Immunity is offered to people so that they might help in the prosecution of a higher ranking level of criminal. This practice comes into play in cases where a drug dealer might implicate their supplier for immunity. Rarely, a country might grant a person immunity from their crimes if it seems that they might be able to help out in one way or another. This was often done following World War II. Here are 5 people who committed monstrous acts but were granted immunity by one nation or another. 1. Augusto Pinochet. After seizing power during a military coup in 1973, Augusto Pinochet was president of Chile between 1974 and 1990. He was a brutal dictator responsible for the internment of 80,000 Chileans, 30,000 of whom were tortured and killed during his tenure. While in power, he gave himself immunity from prosecution and established precedents that would endure his immunity after he left office. Following his presidency, he remained the commander-in-chief of the Chilean army until 1998. Due to the constitution he enacted in 1980, he became a senator for life, which maintained his immunity. Despite this, he was arrested in London under an international warrant on November 10, 1998. Due to his failing health, he was released without prosecution. Though he faced condemnation and humiliation for 3 years until his death, he retained his immunity in Chile. 2. Klaus Barbie. The one with the name of It Fashion Doll was one of the most notorious Nazis granted immunity from prosecution for crimes against humanity. Though he was tried in France in absentia twice and one final time in person in 1987, he was smuggled out of Europe shortly after World War II by the Americans. Later, the US secretly bankrolled and installed Barbie in Germany, where his former loyalties to the Reich made him a perfect adversary to communist expansion. Due to the US and later the Bolivian government, Barbie escaped prosecution for more than 40 years. Barbie was chief of the Gestapo in the French city of Lyon, where he was known as the Butcher of Lyon. During the occupation, he led a campaign of rape, torture, and systematic murder of Jews and separatists. His death toll has been estimated to exceed 14,000 people, most of whom were Jews. 3. Dr. Shiro Ishii. This is one that breaks my heart because I love Japan and is one of my favorite countries, one of my most innocent-looking countries. Dr. Shiro Ishii was the head of Unit 731. As chemical and biological testing on humans was something that allies would not undertake, the research provided by Ishii was enough to secure his immunity from prosecution for his crimes during World War II. He faked his death after the war, but he was found by the Americans in 1976. They insisted that the Japanese turn him over to the US. Ishii was directly responsible for the torture, infection, mutilation, and murder of an untold number of Chinese prisoners and American POWs. Using these people as guinea pigs, Ishii's team forced them to breathe, eat, and receive injections of deadly pathogens, including anthrax, smallpox, botulism, and a myriad of other diseases. Though his research proved to be of little value, Americans upheld their end of the bargain and Ishii remained free until his death in 1959. 4. Dr. Heinrich Mukhtar. This doctor was caught by the Americans as he was fleeing Krakow University in 1945. He avoided prosecution thanks to the Operation Paperclip and entered the German pharmaceutical industry for Chemie Grünenthal, a new company in the 1950s. Mukhtar experimented with typhoid on prisoners at Auschwitz and other camps, but what he did after he escaped justice was worse. Mukhtar was one of the main chemists who invented a drug called thalidomide. The drug was marketed to pregnant women in the 1950s and 60s by Chemie Grünenthal as a wonder drug. Within 4 years of distribution, more than 100,000 women and children suffered catastrophic miscarriages and birth defects, respectively. Deformed children were born without limbs and had other serious problems. An investigation into the company ultimately revealed that thalidomide was created by Mukhtar and other Nazis during the war and was likely tried on prisoners in the camps. Further evidence revealed that the drug may have been a byproduct of wartime research into nerve gas antidotes. 5. President Omar al-Bashir. Omar al-Bashir has been sitting president in the nation of Sudan since 1993. He has also been accused of genocide by the International Criminal Court (ICC) for his nation's actions in Darfur. Though the ICC has not granted him immunity from prosecution for genocide, a recent meeting of the African Union voted to grant such immunity to any incumbent and senior government leaders. This decision was condemned by the ICC and other international organizations, but effectively gave Bashir the protection he needs to avoid prosecution. In 2003, conflict in Darfur resulted in the deaths of between 300,000 and 400,000 people, many of whom were decapitated, raped, and tortured by Sudanese government militias. The African Union's actions may have been allowed for immunity at this time, but the ICC has not given up on prosecuting the first lead of state that they have charged.